The Janssens were family of farmers, moved to the Solomon area around 1938. They came from western Kansas. They saw a better life here and loaded up their stuff in an old truck, flatbed truck, hauled it to Solomon, except for the tractors. They drove them there, then a couple of days afterwards. They just hopped on them and drove them to here. This is one of the family farms, pretty much the way it was, except for a couple of different buildings. The machine shed was added later, the barn was original, the house was original, and the garage was added later. This farm is a small grain farm, grow wheat and milo. It's what traditionally has always been grown. Occasionally they grew some soybeans back in the 70s. Wheat, back in when they came back in 1941, there's pictures showing that the wheat crop they raised had a 28 bushel average, which back then would have been pretty good. And because of that, in 1941, then they also bought a new, or 42, they bought a new farm-alt tractor with the 3-bottom plow. All farms back then were pretty much self-sufficient, didn't rely on anything for much from the stores. Chicken house there, raised a lot of chickens, had probably 150 chickens at one time, and we would eat a lot of eggs, eat a lot of chickens. We'd raise chickens to butcher in the springtime, and we also had an egg route. We'd sell eggs. Now, my mother, she had several customers that she would haul eggs. She went to town on Tuesdays and Saturdays and haul eggs to them. And then even in school, there were several of the teachers. Us kids, we would take eggs to school with us and sell them to the teachers. They'd request us to bring some eggs. Also, they used to raise beef, had pasture. There was a pasture that is north here, about 2 3/4 miles, and every fall when we brought the cows home, we would just run them down the road and bring them here home. They would had enough old cows that knew the way and by the time that we let them out of the pasture, they were ready to come home. We'd just turn them out on the road and follow them home. And I remember we used to butcher right out here one beef about every winter. We had one we'd fatten up, and we'd just butcher it and cut it up on the kitchen table and package it and put it in the freezer. Story with the garage, we built it in 1970. My grandparents had a 1953 Ford car that they were going to replace or buy a new one, and they told us they'd give it to us kids in 1970 if we build a garage. So we built a garage to house it, and if you look inside the garage today, the car is still there. This is the car that was in the family, bought new in 1953. There was 3 boys. We drove it through high school from the early 70s till the late 70s. Then pretty much it was just parked in the shed and in the garage until now, and still sitting there. We drove this. Kids at school called it the bomb. The original sales receipt is still in the car. Purchased in 1953 for a purchase price of $1,843.50. Sales tax at the time was $36 on $1,800. So that's 2%. They moved here in '38. There were 4 boys. 2 of them were old enough in the early 40s to go World War II. The oldest, Harold, joined the Army Air Corps and was training and never did see any action. The second oldest, Bernard, was in the Army, and he ended up over in the Philippines and did see some action over there. One of his famous stories was when he was sitting over in the Philippines. It wasn't really a war story, but he was eating breakfast one morning, and he happened to look up, and in the chow line was a old schoolmate of his, Stuart Shepherd, and he said, "Boy, God, it's good to see somebody from home. I'm going to go over and, after I get done eating breakfast, and go over and see how he's doing." Well, he went over there, and sure enough, he seen him. He tapped him on the back and said, "Boy, Shep, how you doing? Good to see you." Shep turned around and goes, "Hi." That was the end of the story. That's all Shep had to say. We're in the haylofts of the barn, used primarily for hay storage. In the summertime, we would get this barn completely full, where you couldn't get any more hay in it. Have to stack some hays in different places. Use it all just for feeding cattle here. As we went through the winter, we got to a point where we would get enough hay out. We played a game we invented called barn ball, which we used a soccer ball, and we built our own homemade goal. My brothers and I would play this along with our cousins, and me and my younger cousin were always on the team together. And we had one of the most remarkable strings in history. We get together and we always joke about this, but we always say, "What was your record in barn ball?" And me and my younger cousin always say, "Undefeated."